everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my sound. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
Yeah. There's no mercy in this world, just hunger-thirsty persons in different versions. Each new update, that shit worsens. Why? Pull back the curtain and you'll see the different vermin. We all have different burdens that all seem to cause disturbance. Yo, so do me a favor, don't treat me like a neighbor. Don't need the different flavors of your problems just to savor. I've got my own issues, I need a comb to get through. Don't need to groan with you, just go get your own tissue.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
That's it, the end of the song.
Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to NFL Week 13 Power Ranking. So, before we get into it, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, guys. You're new, make sure you ring that notification bell so you guys will not miss any new of the upcoming content to the channel. But with that being said, let's just kind of hop right in. But before we get into the Power Ranking itself, so kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown of how this is going to work. Obviously, I'm going to base this all going from last week going into this week. So that's kind of the main criteria for all 32 NFL teams. So with that being said, let's just kind of get right into it. We know, because I think we're going to start from number 32 to number 1. So obviously the number 32 for me, it's just, I think most of us who do the power rankings have the Texans in the number 32 spot, because I mean, if you looked at what the Texans have, you really don't have much. I mean, Kenyon Green has really shown out to be what the Texans really spent that first round pick on. But now, granted, he is a rookie. I mean, there's some mistakes he's going to clean up. I mean, we still got Stingley Jr. The quarterback position has been questionable, to say the least. I mean, you got Kyle Allen, who has really not shown much, and Davis Mills, for me, just has not shown much. So it's really looking like the Texans are going to secure that number 1 overall pick, because, I mean, you really think about it, they're probably one of the worst teams in the league at 110 and at the time of this stream. Number 31 for me, I got the Chicago Bears just because of where they sit, not just from the talent perspective. I mean, their defense has been kind of all right. Yo, what up, Randy? What is good, my guy? But with the Bears, though, I mean, losing Eddie Jackson I don't know exactly how long Eddie Jackson is going to be up, but, we looked at some offensive pieces. Losing Darnell Mooney to a foot injury to pretty much end his season, it's going to hurt because, I mean, plus you also have Chase Claypool I won't say he's really banged up, but he's slightly banged up. Justin Fields, you guys know how my thoughts on him, and especially in that O-line just has not been. Damn, that's got to be crazy. So thank you, Randy, for that. So Eddie Jackson is done for the year. So it's most likely that the Bears might, the way that they've been going, could go somewhere in the top 5, top 10 at least with the draft picks. Number 30, I got the Rams. I mean, it's self-explanatory. Matthew Stafford looked like he took a step back. Now you don't have Aaron Donald this week due to a high ankle sprain. Just the entire team was just banged up with injuries. And to me, and this is what most of us Eagles fans warns Rams fans. Once you put all your eggs into one basket for a championship, at one point, yes, it was it works out. But if you looked at going down the road after that, you're going to wind up having a hangover. I mean, as an Eagles fan, we have dealt with that, and we just dealt with regression. It's just the way in the Rams case. Good Lord, I mean, it's just you're down your third, and that is point two. And good thing by Randy too. Like they're cutting the wrong personnel to try to fix this. Like Daryl. I mean, Cam Akers hasn't been in for them. I mean, he only has like 1 or 2 good years. That's pretty much about I think 1 good year. But I mean, it's just for me. On the other hand, I just don't know what the hell is going on with the Rams. Knowing that we also been hearing rumors that McVay could retire, that's going to put a damper on things. I don't know. But I have this Rams at 30 because their season is a wash at this point. Yes, I know we have some games to go, but at this point, like there's nothing for the Rams to do other than the fact that try to at least rest up and go for it and try to find a way to cut some pieces that don't belong there. And not just me, but going further, number 29, I got the New Orleans Saints because they still got some decent. I'll get to the Broncos in just a second. I mean, because like I said, for those who are just coming in, basically the criteria is just basing off of last week. I mean, you could definitely make the argument Broncos could be number 29, but for me, I will put the Saints though, because I mean, the Saints really don't have much to work with other than the fact that Michael Thomas can't stay healthy. Alpha Kamara, with all the shit that's been going on with him off the field. Dallas, for me, I don't think Dallas Allen is not a good coach. If I could be completely honest, like you have guys that just cannot stay healthy, or you have a bad quarterback position, because this is all I said, and this is what me and my buddy Tyler said this too. Like, and we all I think all NFL fans know this. When Sean Payton quote unquote retired, and Breeze decided to hang up the spikes, that's when all shit went to shit for the New Orleans Saints, and they've been looking for a quarterback since then. I mean, just because Breeze pretty much defined that Saints organization and defined Saints football. I don't know, but it's just like they got guys. I mean, not just throughout the season. If you look back in the all season, losing a guy like Teron Armstead, who's been was a pretty solid part of that front seven, but losing him to the Miami Dolphins, that kind of put a damper on things. I think the Honey Badger has really not really played well. I mean, he has a decent year, but hasn't really shown what kind of player he was during his time with Kansas City. But I had the Saints at 29 just because of where they're sitting at the same time. But what's good? What is good, Dante? What is good? What is good, my guy? But to be quite honest, and not to mention this too, it's just how everything has turned out to be for the New Orleans Saints. But number 28, I think some could agree to a disagree. I put the Colts at 28 just because of where they sit so far in the standings. Not to mention this too, they play in another weakest division in the AFC South. Have an inexperienced head coach in Jeff Saturday, whose clock management is very questionable for a rookie head coach. And because of the fact that, they've been known to have a damn quarterback carousel go through, a questionable front office, definitely questionable ownership group at best. I mean, got some decent pieces, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr., Jonathan Taylor. But Jonathan Taylor, though, I mean, surprisingly, is having a bit of a down year this year. And, still decent season, but for me, anyways, just the Colts, they ain't going to go. No, but the one thing with the Colts is where I put them at that. If they don't decide to go to the quarterback, they're going to be a lot lower on my rankings because of that. And that's going to set them back for a while. And I don't know, but that's the way that I see it out of the Colts, because the Colts is just a complete mess at this moment. Even though they're 4-7-1. And that's really coming off of a win over the Steelers, who I have at 27, which I'll go with the Steelers. Now, the Steelers as a whole, the silverware this year, definitely going to have the first losing season since 2003, which is crazy hard to believe. It's been that long they ever had a losing season. But at some point, it's looking like it. Kenny Pickett is really starting to really show flashes to be a good quarterback for the Steelers. But where I have issues with the Steelers at times is their defense just kind of stinks in terms of, the secondary. I mean, this is an entire Steelers team. They're not, I won't say not exactly terrible, but I think they could be a lot better if you go down the road of what they're showing. Because, I mean, they do, like I said, they have some decent pieces. I think Najee Harris is going to rebound next year. I know Najee Harris is going to have a bit of a down year. I mean, the Steelers, like I said, is going to have their first losing season since 2003. But like I said, Kenny Pickett actually has played some better football as of late. And like I said, even brought up over a 7-point win over the Indianapolis Colts, in which I'll give the Colts a little bit of some credit, though, for being very scrappy for a team that's 4-7-1 in a weak ass AFC South. And same thing can be said about the NFC South too, but that's just me. But number 26, I had the Denver Broncos because I think the Broncos still have some decent offensive pieces. KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, just to name a couple. Even though they did, I think, waiving Melvin Gordon, I think, and even though it was a surprise, but I had a feling it was going to happen one way or the other, because Melvin Gordon just fumbles a ton. The dude just cannot hang on to the football. I would like to, I think, like I said, going into this week, this is all going to subject to change, because I feel like, Broncos fans, I think NFL fans know that, Wilson is now become the most hated quarterback in the NFL because of that. Good shit. Well, and then also Deshaun Watson too, but that's a whole different situation in its entirety. And we know that I'm pretty sure if Nathaniel Hackett does not get fired at the end of the year, then Broncos got some issues. But like I said, Broncos, I have them at 26 because I feel like they still got some decent pieces on this roster, but just, I think trading for Russell Wilson, I think it was one of the bigger mistakes that they made, and bringing a guy like Nathaniel Hackett in as a head coach. So that's where my little bit of a nitpick is with the Broncos. Number 25 is the Carolina Panthers. Now, my reason for it when I had the Carolina Panthers at 25, yes, I know they ain't competing for much. Like I said, this also ties to the fact they play in a weak division in the NFC South. And Steve, I mean, the fact that even look, Steve Wilkes, for people to remember, has not been like say, a quote unquote not a good coach for the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals really never get this man like one full season. That's pretty much about it before they give him the boot. But the way that I see it is because they're also in the part of a quarterback carousel. Not to mention too, you brought back Sam Darnold. Baker Mayfield's pretty much done. His NFL career is he's kind of flopping at this point. You drafted Matt Corral, but unfortunately he's kind of hurt. So now you got to look for another franchise quarterback. Plus you pretty much had this kind of a fire sale. You got rid of Robbie Anderson. Yeah, Robbie Anderson is going. You got rid of Robbie Anderson. Then there's been a lot of talks of moving Brian Burns apart off that defensive line, but it's just the Panthers ain't going to go nowhere. It's like the Panthers. The way that I see it, they had some good years in this even though it's a really young franchise. Well, the youngest is the Texans, but the second youngest franchise is that I think 2015 is one of the better seasons that they had. Since after that Super Bowl, they have really not been the same ever since. But that's just me. But I had the Panthers at 25. Now the Cardinals, I have at 24. Because based on the fact that we knew that, actually getting D-Hop back was kind of crucial for them. But where the issue lies at times, their defense has been playing some solid football. Don't get me wrong. But most times than not, it's probably Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has not really shown to be that guy. And I feel like they kind of, I would say, overpay for a guy like Kyler Murray. And not to mention the fact that Patrick Peterson's starting shit with him, which is kind of ridiculous to say the least. And Cliff Kingsbury ain't that fucking great either. This all out air offense is kind of flopping. If for lack of a better term, Kyler Murray at times, he has shown to be a good quarterback in some weeks and a bad one in a few weeks because it's like the dude has just been inconsistent. Like he has not really put on some consistent starts with this team, and this also sends to the play calling. And like on a 4th and 1, like say 4th and inches, or actually no, wait a minute. Yeah, like a 3rd, like 3rd and inches. From what we saw, and especially this goes back to when my Eagles took on the Cardinals. I think Kyler Murray said he wanted to spike it. Damn, that's got to suck for Matthew Stafford. But like I said, man, it's been like I said, this NFL season has been very unpredictable, and I love it. But going back to what I said about the Arizona Cardinals, for me, I think it all sends back to Cliff Kingsbury. I think his time has run its course. If I'm the organization at this point, you had to find a way to get rid of Cliff Kingsbury because his play calling has just not been great, to say the least. And the GM has not been the best either, in terms of getting pieces around, Kyler Murray. Not to mention this fit too, when you traded get a 1st round pick from Baltimore from all right. Well, Hollywood Brown has to stay healthy. You got a couple good receivers, like I said, and Hollywood Brown, and D-Hop. And there were some mistakes too. Like you cut Eno Benjamin, who actually I thought was a better running back than people would realize. Like this Cardinals team is just a complete. I won't say complete mess, but it's just I feel like there's a little bit dysfunction in this organization. But going further, number 23, I had the Green Bay Packers at 23, just because look, Rodgers is not having one of the better years that we expected to see Rodgers even have. Look, I think Christian Watson has really shown to be a really good rookie wide receiver. Randall Cobb has nowhere to be fucking found. Matt LaFleur at times doesn't know what the hell he's doing at times. And the run defense kind of stinks. No, not just the run defense, but the entire defense just kind of stinks. And from what we saw throughout the entire year, like if the offense is clicking well, the offense and the defense kind of stinks, and vice versa. Like there's like no middle ground for the Green Bay Packers to be consistent, for a lack of a better term. And that's where the reason why you have the rest of the NFC North kind of laughing at you, because at this point, and we're seeing, Rodgers are going to be suiting up with injured ribs and an injured thumb. Now, granted, I mean, look, like at some point, the Packers have to realize too, you have Jordan Love behind him, and I'll give them Jordan Love a benefit of the doubt. I mean, he has shown flashes to be a good quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. But at some point, like when Aaron Rodgers has to find a way has to understand, like his time's going to come to an end. Like the dude you cannot play at the same time. But what is good, RQ? What is good? I had the Packers. But yeah, well, that's where I had the Packers. I mean, just the Packers. It's crazy. It's really crazy how much a bit of a 180 the Packers have had. I really looked at it, minus this season. They had really multiple winning seasons, but I feel I don't remember the last time they ever had a losing season. It's probably been a while, then I can't think at the top of my head. But going further into my power rankings, I have the Lions at 22. Now, granted, I didn't want to put the Lions higher because the reason why is because their defense kind of stinks. If you look back at the Thanksgiving game, their defense, though, has not been the best, I would say. But Anzalone has been a pretty solid defensive player for the Lions. But for me, I just feel like, you got some really good pieces over there. I mean, especially offensively, Amon-Ra St. Brown has been kind of, for me, is a very underrated receiver. You got a really good running back duo in Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. Now, the quarterback, I would say you could call it is, I would say, a slight bit of a question mark. But I mean, I definitely would see the Lions go for a quarterback and then try to add some defensive pieces, because I mean their defense is probably one of the most it's one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I think they're probably in the bottom of the barrel type of of how their defense is. But I had the Lions at 22. The Browns, I have at 21, just because I think with that overtime win over Tom Brady, which is funny to say the least, and I'll talk about the Buccaneers, who will have ahead of them, and and for some good reasons. The Browns has been, I would say, a bit of a mess in terms of where they sit in their division. Not to mention this too. I mean, you got Deshaun Watson coming back, who probably going to be is going to be the most hated quarterback coming off his suspension for off the field bullshit. I mean, Jacoby Brissett has been very, very solid. Even though at this point of his career, I mean, we know that Jacoby Brissett is a solid backup, but he had his moments at the same time too. I mean, to be a good quarterback, it's just. But yeah, but the Browns are just the Browns. I mean, there's really nothing to say for it. I mean, you got a good running back duo in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. David Njoku's just a decent tight end. I mean, but the wide receivers, I mean, look, Amari Cooper's pretty decent, but hasn't really shown to be the guy of what or basically what from going from the Cowboys who. But I'll get to the Cowboys. We're kind of get past that really quick. But number 20, I do have the Buccaneers, but I think the Buccaneers, even though not having the best season of what they're showing on the field, they still got, for me, I still got they got some decent pieces. They have really got some good pieces to, I don't want to say go be a bad team, but what their record apparently at times that they play like the record shows. Like I said, and this also sends back to they're playing in a weak division with the Saints, the Falcons, I mean the Carolina Panthers, who, let's be real, is a shit show of a franchise. But that's besides the point. Who I just talked about the Panthers earlier for those who are just coming in. But Tom Brady not having the best statistical season by far. The wide receiver, like the wide receivers, like has been not great because Chris Godwin cannot stay healthy. Mike Evans at times cannot stay healthy. I mean, right now it's just if they somehow make the division with a below 500 record, for me, I don't see the Buccaneers going far in the postseason because, like I said, like Arco said, the NFC South is a train wreck of a division. I mean, same with the AFC South, but I had the Buccaneers at 20. I think there's a slightly better team than because I had the Browns. Like I said, I had the Browns at 21 and the Buccaneers at 20. Now, granted, I would have put the Browns over the Buck at 20, but this also sends the fact they have slight of a better record than the Browns, even though the Browns beat them in overtime. But I still think the Buccaneers are a slightly better team than the Browns in terms of what they have. But I mean, going further, I had the Jaguars at 19. 19 at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the reason why I have them at 19 is because, yes, I know they have not played their best football, but last week, they're coming off, let's be real, probably a huge upset over the Baltimore Ravens. And Ravens fans, I know, is very salty. And I'll get to the Ravens in just a second because, I know there's going to be some Ravens fans may agree to disagree with where I have the Ravens just because the Jaguars, yes, I mean, Trevor Lawrence hasn't really been, well, I won't say he's terrible, but, having Shad Khan as your owner and has not really want to try to build a team around him, even though they did try to do something to build around Trevor Lawrence, getting a guy like Brandon Scherf to help him with that O-line, getting Christian Kirk and a few other pieces, and let's be real, training James Robinson was kind of interesting to say the least. But I mean, that's just me. But I feel like if the Jaguars, see, this is why I feel like the Jaguars do need better ownership because I mean, the Jaguars had these moments where they actually play like an actual good team. I mean, if you go back to even though we struggled against them before, but the Jaguars, like I said, I really never overhyped the Jaguars because I know where the Jaguars stand. Like I said, they play also in a weak-ass division as well. That doesn't help them. But like I said, I just had the Jaguars at 19 just because I feel like they have built. I would say they had some like I said, they got some good weapons on the offensive part of that offensive front. I think Christian Kirk has having a decent season. Travis Etienne, as a Clemson guy, has been. No, if he didn't get hurt, I mean, at some point he actually has had a solid season, but injuries do happen. Yeah, I mean, this is what it is. What it is for that AFC South. But going back to the NFC South, we have the Falcons at 18. Now, granted, I would like to have the Falcons lower, but coming off, I would say, a close loss to the Washington Commanders. But if you also look at how the season has kind of played out for the Falcons, I thought the Falcons would have been a lot worse than what the record shows. Now, yes, I'm having a below average quarterback play in Marcus Mariota, not having trading away Calvin Ridley, and just really not what you expect. I mean, Cordell Patterson pretty much is a solid player on this roster, but for me, it's just like the Falcons. And, I think most of you who are in the chat can agree to disagree. I think Arthur Smith is definitely on the hot seat, but I really want to go that far. But I mean, I think his seat is warm, but I want to say like scalding hot, like some of these other coaches that I've been seeing, I've been hearing that's on the hot seat, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Number 17, I got the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, granted, I wanted to put them lower. And just because a few reasons. One, this season really has not really been good for them. Number two is the coaching for sure, both offensively and defensively. Now, granted, number three, I mean, yes, you got the win over the Seahawks, who I do have above the Raiders. And I'll get to the Seahawks in just after I get finished with the Raiders. The Raiders, it's just most of us NFL fans, we hyped this Raiders team to be a really good team in this and what we thought was a competitive AFC West. But the AFC West this year has not been great. I would say, I wasn't going to say like subpar, but it pretty much is. We just overhyped it for and just make it look like idiots. And it was embarrassing. And that's just the way that it is. But number 16, like I said, and I didn't mention the Seahawks, is the Seattle Seahawks. Now, people are going to have the different views on Pete Carroll, though. Well, Pete Carroll has really done a solid job of what they have. And let's be real, probably the one team that won that trade with get Russell Wilson, screwed the Broncos for the next 2 years in the draft. So that's first round picks looking pretty solid for the Seahawks. And Geno Smith, yes, I mean, career wise is known as a decent backup, I would say, but but as a starter so far for the Seahawks has a very solid season. About a 6-5 record so far this year through 11 games or 11, 12 games or something like that. Where I have issues with the Seahawks is the run defense. The run defense hasn't really been the greatest, I would say. I mean, you let Josh Jacobs run all over you mostly against the Raiders, or actually when you host the Raiders at Lumen Field. That's where my issue lies with the Seahawks is the run defense. But I think they got some decent secondary play from Quandre Diggs and stuff like that. They got some decent offensive weapons. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I mean, and no offense is a decent tight end, but I mean, that's just for me where I see the Seahawks. But it's just the run defense for me is where I put the Seahawks like 16, just because they have a hard time stopping the run. Because they don't have that interior pieces, I would say, to really stop that. Number 15, speaking of the Titans, I have the Tennessee Titans at 15 just because, I mean, like I said, they play in a weak-ass AFC South. It's like each and every year. I mean, look, Mike Vrabel's a good head coach. Don't get me wrong. Derrick Henry's still a good running back, but at some point, the Titans are going to realize, how much longer are you going to rely on Derrick Henry before he starts breaking down? Figuratively, anyways, because, a lot of football fans who don't really realize, before the age of 30, most running backs start to break down. And, I think that's where I think that's my biggest gripe with the Titans. That's just me. And just really looking at this entirety as a whole. But, the Titans, every time when they try to make the postseason, they always get themselves false soaked. They're no far in the postseason. I mean, we saw it with the last couple of years. They couldn't even get out of the first round. I mean, even looked at last year's postseason, you sacked Joe Burrow like 9 times and you still lost. And that all stems to the fact that you also have Ryan Tannehill as your quarterback, and your backup quarterback is Malik Willis, and that's not going to help either. So, like I said, I mean, I have the Titans low outside the top 10 because, I mean, what they have. Yes, I know they're going to definitely win that division, but I still don't think the Titans had the decent personnel. Treylon Burks has really not, has been an okay rookie season, but not of what. But that's just me. That's just how I observed the Tennessee Titans so far in this 2022 season. Number 14, I got the Bengals. And this is also sent back to their last couple of matchups. Last year in the postseason, even though Joe Burrow got sacked 9 times because the O-line is absolute trash. And somehow the Bengals still pull it out and beat pull it out over the Titans. Now, granted, the Titans, if they had better quarterback play, I think we could have been talking a lot different than having a guy like Ryan Tannehill who sucks in the postseason. I mean, it's just And with the Bengals this year has not shown what we saw with the Bengals in the past, from last year. Now, granted, they did improve our O-line, but it's still just not working. I mean, when Joe Mixon's hurt, if Ja'Marr Chase can't stay healthy, well, I mean, that's I think the first time that's ever had has missed some time because of an injury. It shows that that, I mean, look, I know one player can't really make a difference, can hurt a team, but you'd be surprised of the impact that Ja'Marr Chase has. Now, Ja'Marr Chase, if you looked at last year, nobody can know how to figure him out. Now, a lot of teams will know how to put double coverage on Ja'Marr Chase, and that forces Joe Burrow to find his other receivers, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, in the open field, and at times rely and occasionally rely on the run game with Joe Mixon, who is coming back from injury as well. I mean, has a pretty decent season, but has not really shown to be a really good run. I mean, he's a good running back. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, it's just the Bengals at times is confusing at times. I would say it's basically how best I can describe the Bengals. They're hot and cold. They can get beat. They're like hot and cold sometimes. Number 13, we got the little brother in the basement, and that is the Washington Commanders. Now, granted, the Commanders, I mean, what's there to say? With a shitty ownership, some decent. Taylor Heinicke, decent quarterback. You got decent quarterback play out of Taylor Heinicke. You still got Terry McLaurin, who's still a good could be a potential 1,000 yard receiver. Brian Robinson, give them hate on Brian. For those who are going to be hating on Brian Robinson, you got to give this guy a lot of credit though. For a guy who has come back from, let's be real, being shot from attempted carjacking and put up the numbers that he's putting up so far in a very short amount of time is ridiculous. And you got some. I'm trying to think of the other running back, and Tony Gibson has kind of taken a step back a little bit. And the way that I see it is during this offseason, when the Commanders traded for Carson Wentz, I'm thinking to myself, what sense does that make? You had Taylor Heinicke, let's be real, could be right now, you can definitely tell some different plays for Ron Rivera's team. Now, it's just, at this point, I mean, the trade for Carson Wentz really didn't make any sense for the Washington Commanders. I mean, they're probably one of the worst teams in football, but that's besides the point. But the Commanders, though, I mean, they got some really good defensive pieces. Payne, Allen. I mean, Kendall Fuller has been very an underrated part of that secondary. Now, granted, Taylor Heinicke has his flaws at times. He knows how to sometimes can underthrow or overthrow the football to his receivers. Which we did at times saw against the Falcons. But they played against the Falcons, but that's besides the point. But which is everything what's going on with the Commanders though, and all the, let's be real, the negative with all the news surrounding them, because for good reason, because their owner is an absolute scumbag. And you decided to dedicate one of your best, let's be real, probably one of the most underrated players in the franchise history, and Sean Taylor, and you do him like that. I'm sorry, but that's where that rubs me the wrong way, because people don't realize how good Sean Taylor truly was at the time for the what's once known as the Washington Redskins, and that's just where I'll leave my thoughts with that. Number 12, I got the Giants. The Giants, oh boy, where do I begin with them? I mean, they're just and that's what I'm saying. Like I said, going back to what I said about Brian Robinson, the fact that I don't know exactly what numbers he has. I mean, the dude coming back from getting shot and almost I don't know exactly how many total rushing yards he has now, but I mean, if he somehow puts up 1,000 rush yards after being shot, I mean, get that man comeback player of the year for me. That's my comeback player of the year candidate for sure, 100%. But number 12, I got the Giants just because, I mean, look, they're still a good team, but the issue I have with them is health. And at times, not having good personnel around him or around this team. Wan'Dale Robinson has pretty much been main leading guy. Darius Slayton has nowhere to be found. I mean, Saquon Barkley, I mean, they're relying on Saquon Barkley way too much than you would think to have a load like of what Saquon Barkley is going on, especially when he had that shoulder injury, especially on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. You can definitely tell that Saquon was on 100%, and it definitely showed in the play, knowing that, Daniel Jones is on, they declined the 5th-year option. So one way or the other, Giants could be looking for a quarterback, so we'll see how that goes. But I think overall, though, they're just hurt. That's where, like, if they played better football without being hurt, I think that could have the Giants inside the top 10. But that's just where I'll leave it with the Giants. They just are hurt. Now, number 11, since I did mention the Ravens, I had the Ravens at 11, and the reason why, because it's the fourth quarter defense for me. The fourth quarter defense kind of sucks. I mean, like, this year they've blown four fourth quarter leads. And yet, and for me, there's a lot of, look, Kyle Hamilton still is having a good season, but still, I won't say he's not terrible, but I mean, the season could have been a lot better than what the Ravens are showing. Knowing that you have got some guys in contract years, Lamar Jackson, that's just where I'll leave it. I mean, the Ravens is just at times are convoluted at times. And what I mean by, like I said, that also stems back to we lost Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator. You can make the argument that their defense is kind of lacking because of that. And Harbaugh as a really good head coach. I mean, Mark Andrews not having a really good season. I mean, trading Marquise Hollywood Brown was kind of stupid. But that's where I have the Ravens. I have the Ravens outside the top 10. I think they're a borderline top 10 team, but with that fourth quarter defense, what we saw this year, I don't know. Like, I can't put faith in that defense. So give me 1 second. I gotta turn my light on. All right. Well, number 10, I had the New York Jets. Just because, I mean, yes, I know the Jets played the Bears, but you have to look at the way that the season has turned out for the Jets. I mean, they got a really good defense is what's helping win them games. Now seeing that you still have a wide receiver that's a bust in Denzel Mims. You got Elijah Moore that's kind of pissed off him a little bit. But I think having a guy like Mike White actually has pretty, despite that one game though, I think he has. I want to say won't start him for the rest of the season, but I mean, at this point, what do you have to lose? I mean, what's stake here for the Jets? It's making the postseason for the first time since 2011. And, if you're going to have Zach Wilson do it, you ain't seen the postseason under Zach Wilson. And I always said this too. For me, I think Zach Wilson has turned out to be a bust in the second year. I really do think drafting a guy like Zach Wilson was probably one of the most stupidest or the dumbest decisions that the Jets have made. But then again, the Jets are going to jet. That's besides the point. But going into number 9, we're going to have a fellow AFC East rival, and that's the New England Patriots. Now, the Patriots I have at number 9 because, I mean, when they play solid football on all three facets, they're definitely a top 10 team for sure. But at times, we have seen the Patriots defense at times kind of shut down a little bit. Matthew Judon has pretty much been the only one that has not been kind of taking a step backwards. I mean, he's probably had one of the best seasons of his career. But knowing that you have Matt Patricia calling the offensive plays, which is, at the time has not been, well, obviously convoluted, but for some reason it's working for the Patriots. But, Mac Jones, I mean, even though he's not terrible this year, but kind of took a step back from what he had in his rookie season. But the Patriots I have at 9. Number 8, I got the Chargers. I think the Chargers, give them more credit where credit is due. Try to battle through all these damn injuries because they're one of the most injury-riddled teams in the NFL. And Justin Herbert can do so much. I mean, Mike Williams can't stay healthy. I mean, you still got Keenan Allen, who's, I don't know exactly where he's been at. Austin, I mean, pretty much the most of the workload goes to is pretty much been put on Austin Eckler, and Brandon Staley. I think most NFL fans like myself know how we feel about him, and just how over aggressive he truly is. Just because I just feel like Brandon Staley. I don't know. I feel like Brandon Staley's going to find a way to fuck over the Chargers one way or the other in this AFC West. Like I said, but we'll see how this end of the year, how towards the end of the season turns out. Now, the next team I have at number 7, who I still think is the top. So it's always going to be in the top 10 each and every week, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. Like I said, I'll like, even though with the rivalry that we have with the Cowboys, I'm not the kind of person that will will shit talk. The Cowboys. I know where we see talent. Hang on. And think of this too. The Cowboys, having Dan Quinn as their defensive coordinator, for me, I thought it's really genius. For a guy who just really didn't work out as a head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Turn a team or goes to the Cowboys for the defensive coordinator. Always had like a top 5 defense the last 2 to 3 years. I would say. Again, a guy like Micah Parsons has have another good season. Not having Randy Gregory, but D-Law still having a really solid season. I mean, Trayvon Diggs is finally actually getting better after not, because we always keep constantly shitting on Trayvon Diggs for not getting burnt. Noah Brown for me ain't it for them. Noah Brown's a solid number 3 or 4 receiver on their depth chart. I would say too, the Cowboys at times will make some questionable decisions at times. And, a lot of times, which scratches their heads. Perfect examples when they traded Amari Cooper for a 5th and a 6th round, a 5th round pick and a 2024 6th round pick from the Cleveland Browns. And I'm thinking to myself, why in the hell would you do that? Because Michael Gallup at times cannot stay healthy. As CD Lamb at this point is playing like a number 1, but there's the moments that CD Lamb has played like a number 2. At times, he has those moments, but Dak's still a decent, statistically, he's a top 10 quarterback, but at best, he's like could be a borderline outside the top 10 of just how the season has went. Now, granted, he has dealt with injuries, which player hasn't, and it's just, and this is all part of probably the best division in football. Technically second best. Really count. Yeah, what up? I appreciate that. I really do. But like I said, I had the Cowboys at 7 just because, they have still got a good defense. No matter who they lose, they always find a way to, fill in that spot. I think Tyler Smith has really done a really decent job, especially he got some of these rookies too. Tyler Smith has played a really good season at the left tackle position over, because let's be real, I think he should be the left tackle of the future, rather than you have a guy like Jason Pierce who cannot stay healthy. Tyron Smith, another guy I feel like they should hang it up. But not just me. With my thoughts on older players. Number 6, because we're getting close to the top 5 very soon. So number 6, I got the Minnesota Vikings. Now, granted, the quarterback Kirk Cousins, like I said, is an average type of quarterback. I think we all know this. That's kind of given. But look, Justin Jefferson having a really good season. So is Dalvin Cook. Their secondary is where I would say at times has not been the best. But outside the secondary, but the pass and rush defense has been pretty solid. But like I said, it's the secondary is what does it for me to put them outside the top 5. Because when everything clicks for the Minnesota Vikings, they are a top 5 team for sure. But like I said, going into the season and seeing how this team has been built, the one issue I had was the secondary part of this defense. At times And there were some moments where they shown to not play well. And that's kind of where I had the Vikings at 6, but I still think they're still a good team in the NFC North, and while the other teams are kind of just looking from above, basically. Number 5, I got the San Francisco 49ers. Now, granted, have a combination of tandem combination of Debo and Christian McCaffrey is playing out of his goddamn mind in San Francisco. So I'll give him a lot of props. Let's be real. Probably thank God for the Carolina Panthers got him out of Carolina into San Francisco, where they actually can utilize him a lot better. Hell, let's be real, not ruin this man's career. Like Jimmy G is still a solid quarterback, but there are times he has his moments where he just does not play like it. Now, Kyle Shanahan's still a good head coach, but when it comes to the times for the postseason, sometimes it's like, where does, which Kyle Shanahan are we going to get? Are we going to get what we saw in the regular season, even though the regular season really don't mean much when you get into the postseason? Or are we going to see what we saw in the Super Bowl when he was with the Atlanta Falcons? But that's besides the point. But, I mean, the 49ers have been playing some pretty solid football. Let's be leading the NFC West over the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, and it's just like, for me, I just feel like that's where I see it. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, even though he has his reputation precedes him to have choking games away, but not that, like, with all this, like, first of all, and I'll say this too, if you have all this talent and somehow if you fall short in the playoffs, for me, should be no excuse, because, I mean, you trade for Christian McCaffrey, you have Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, like, literally, your defense is getting healthy, but yet, even though defense is one of the top defenses in the AFC by far. For me, I think they're better than the Kansas in the NFC. I mean, let's be real. I mean, average, like, holding the opponents to 15 points per game. That's saying something of how good your defense can be. But number 4, I get the Miami Dolphins. Now, granted, I mean, rightfully so. I mean, the Dolphins still is another team you can make the argument that's a top 5 team for sure in the NFL. Yeah, I mean, Tua playing some really solid, really great football. And you have a really good duo in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and good couple running backs in the backfield. And Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr. under Mike McDaniel and stuff like that. But I feel like at times where the Dolphins have a tendency to, I would say, fail at times is when you play. I mean, we saw at times with good defense against good defenses. The Dolphins at times struggle against good defenses, but I wouldn't say that's like a biggest weakness. But at a lot of times, let's see, not a lot of times, but most times than not, we see them kind of just falter, I would say. And I will say this too: the Miami Dolphins need a better medical staff because y'all could have ruined Tua's career after the Thursday Night Football against the Bengals. But that's kind of besides the point. For me, I get the Bills at 3 just because. I mean, they're still a good team in the NFL for sure. But for me, it's just if Josh Allen is not healthy, I mean, from what we heard, like his night, I know he's actually, I would say not say taking a step back, but I mean, he's kind of playing like he kind of regressed a little bit. And he lost Von Miller for 4 weeks to a knee injury. So he'll be reevaluated the next 7 to 10 days. That's going to hurt the defense a little bit. I mean, you pretty much got some major defensive players on the IR now. Micah Hyde, who I think should be contemplating retirement if he's going to have these constant neck injuries. But I mean, they still got some really good pieces on the outs, some good wide receivers. Stephon Diggs. I mean, Gabe Davis has kind of been, let's be real, probably the most underrated receiver that I have seen on the Bills. Real good running back room with Devin Singletary, James Cook. Zach Moss has kind of been hot and cold sometimes, but I think the Bills have really has a really decent season, but could have been a lot better if most of their good players could stay healthy. But that's just me. Number 2, I got the Birds, the Philadelphia Eagles at number 2. And for one reason, it's probably the run defense. Run defense is the only one. The reason why I have the Eagles at 2. I think they're still probably one of the better teams in the NFL. Well, let's be real, record-wise. But, I mean, like I said, going into this week, it's the run defense is what does it for me. Now, granted, we're never going to get Jordan Davis back alone to join the front seven with Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, part with Hassan Reddick on the edges with Josh Sweat. So we'll see how that goes. And number one, I think we're all in agreement here is the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I mean, Andy Reid's still doing his thing out there in Kansas City. Same with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, and it's like, and like I said this, and we all see this too. It just seems to me that Mahomes doesn't need Tyreek Hill to be to make Tyreek to be part of a good team. We see Juju kind of ball out. I mean, we see MVS kind of ball out for him for the Kansas City Chiefs. And the fact they traded for Kadarius Toney was questionable to say the least, because Kadarius Toney has just been injury prone. That's just the way how I see it. But so have Eric Bieniemy as an offensive coordinator, which is a shame that we might not see him as a head coach because of his past. I mean, that's people are kind of bring up his past, but at some point, it's like you're going to have to, because I do want to see Bieniemy to be a head coach for sure. But like I said, I have the Chiefs at number one in my power rankings because, I mean, they're still one of the better teams in the AFC by far than anybody else. Just because, I mean, they have postseason experience. They've been to the Super Bowl in the last 2 to 3 years, give or take. But they got some players in the backfield. I mean, there's got some that, could use a lot of work. I mean, especially on the defensive end, I mean, I think Trent McDuffie has a solid season. George Karlaftis, this kid, I thought that this kid I had high hopes for him, even though he's kind of had not the best rookie year, but I think he can clean that up. I mean, I'll give him a pass for that. But like I said, that's going to do it for my NFL Week 13 power rankings. But like I said, it's going to be subject to change going after Week 13, going into Week 14, which you'll see another stream like these and kind of break it all down. But with that being said, if you guys are new, appreciate everybody that stuck around with me. Make sure you hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, guys. With that being said, this is Robert from the Philly Sports Talk Podcast. I'll see you guys on the next one.